Alright, so we need to recap what happened at the end of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. If you remember, Makarov launched a massive operation targeting the London underground tunnels. The plan was simple: detonate the trains, cause massive casualties, and then move the attack towards Paris. Task Force 141, Price, Ghost, Gas, and Soap managed to stop the bombs before they could go off. But the mission came at a brutal cost. Right when it looked like the team had won, Makarov would strike back. He killed Soap and nearly took Captain Price out as well. But before Makarov could finish the job, he was hit and forced to retreat. Injured, cornered, Makarov disappeared into hiding, with Task Force 141 being left to deal with the aftermath. And as for Price, this changed everything. Soap's death completely breaks something inside of him. What happens next, the choices that Price makes after losing one of his closest allies, becomes the catalyst for everything that follows in Modern Warfare 4. That's where Modern Warfare 3 leaves us. Now, after the ending of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, we get this post-credit scene where Price finally crosses a line. And with Price doing this, it sends him down a much darker path. The rules no longer matter. The lines he once followed no longer apply. Everything that happened in Modern Warfare 3 changed him. And you also have to remember that Modern Warfare 4 takes place after a 3-year time jump since the end of Modern Warfare 3. Captain Price has been carrying all of this weight with him for years. Soap's death, the failure to stop Makarov for good, the constant warfighting. It's been eating away at him day in, day out. And then you look at Makarov himself. In one way or another, Makarov has had his hand in everything throughout this entire reboot. Whether it was through the Connie Group, his inner circle, or operations happening behind the scenes, his presence has always been there. Even back in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, you could feel the shadow of something bigger building in the background. And even if we didn't know it, Captain Price knew it. And by the time we get Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 3, that shadow finally reveals himself. And it's Vladimir Makarov. Now, Makarov has been haunting the entire series and has been looming over Captain Price and Task Force 141. And so one of the biggest questions that you have to ask yourself is what happened to Makarov between 2023 and 2026? After the events of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Makarov disappears. Following Soap's death and the failed attacks in London, he goes completely off the grid. But Makarov isn't the type of man to sit out hiding in fear. While the world believes he's gone, he's already planning his next move. Because for Makarov, it's always about chaos. His goal has always been to destabilize the West, destroy the global order, and force the world into conflict. Every operation, every attack, every sacrifice, everything that he does all feeds into one large objective. But after failing again and again throughout the rebooted trilogy and in MW3 specifically, Makarov realizes that his next move cannot be another small-scale operation or another failure. It has to be bigger than anything he's ever attempted before. Over the next 3 years, I think that Makarov begins rebuilding in the shadows. He starts searching for the one thing he's always needed: more leverage. That's when he turns his attention towards North Korea, who is going through change for the first time in years. Makarov sees a regime that already hates the West, a nation isolated from the rest of the world, and willing to challenge global powers at any moment. They only need the reason. So to Makarov, that becomes an opportunity. And because at the end of the day, Makarov only serves himself, he knows that he can use this rising global tension to his advantage. He can manipulate nations, weaponize the instability, and push the world closer to the edge. In his mind, he can finally shift the balance of power and complete this fucking psychotic mission that he started years ago. Makarov eventually reaches out to North Korea, and over the next 3 years, the two sides begin working together in secret. What maybe starts off as a little bit of communication slowly turns into a full alliance with the Connie Group and Makarov himself. Both sides began planning something bigger than we've ever seen. Not just a terrorist attack, not some covert operation, but a full-on invasion and chaos that would bring the entire world to its knees. As this plan continues to develop, they gain access to a weapon that's powerful enough to change everything. Now, I don't know if it's a nuclear device, I don't know if it's some sort of biological weapon or some other form of mass destruction. But one thing is absolutely clear. If this weapon is used, the level of destruction that it would cause is beyond belief and would shift the balance of power forever. This is exactly what Makarov wants. This is exactly what he's been building towards. Now, alongside the new supreme leader of North Korea, Makarov begins preparing the operation to finally attack. Every move that he makes is for this specifically. After spending the last 3 years in the shadows, Makarov is ready to make his move. But somehow, Captain fucking Price catches wind of it. I don't know if it's because of an alliance, because maybe someone fed him intel, I don't know. But he finally knows the location of Makarov. I think that Price discovers that Makarov is moving on something massive here. And so this is the moment where Captain Price finally makes his move. And after everything that happened in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Price is out for revenge. Before we continue there, we need to look at Task Force 141 and Shadow Company. We need to look at the current state of these teams, as they're probably going to be the center of everything in MW4. Let's start off with Task Force 141. The team that we once knew is completely fucking gone. At its peak, we had Task Force 141 consisting of Captain Price, Ghost, Soap, Nikolai, Gas, Kate Laswell, maybe Alex Keller. They were the core members holding everything together across all the conflicts in Modern Warfare. But after the events of MW3, that team is gone. Captain Price is now disavowed. Whether he has gone fully rogue or simply been removed from anything to do with command, he is no longer operating as part of Task Force 141. He has effectively become an outlaw, and that is according to the developers themselves. Soap is dead, which removes one of the team's most experienced and trusted operators. Nikolai is probably not actively working with them, given his long-standing loyalty or friendship with Captain Price and his tendency to always kind of just stay away. That leaves Task Force 141 in a very different state, with Ghost, Gas, and Kate Laswell. I believe that Lieutenant Simon Ghost Riley has been promoted to captain, and over the last 3 years, he has taken command of Task Force 141 and reshaped it under his leadership. I think he's brought in a bunch of new members. I think he's been rebuilding the unit as best as he could. And I would like to believe that's the case, because instead of Task Force 141 being fully disavowed, it is operating under the command of Captain Simon Ghost Riley. I think that alone is probably a major shift in what we were expecting. And this changes Task Force 141 because it's not the one that we knew. It is completely different, and I think that is a very welcome change. Another team that we need to take a look at is Shadow Company. By the end of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Shadow Company is formally charged in connection to a blue-on-blue incident. However, in the aftermath, they are ultimately found not guilty in court. Graves denies any wrongdoing and places the blame on General Shepard. Now, at the same time, Shepard is killed, which completely changes the power structure around Shadow Company. With him gone, Graves is left in a awkward position, maybe. The unit still exists. Obviously, it's his and he owns it, but the future is a little bit unclear, and the type of work that they're going to get is a little bit unclear. This is where the ultimate opportunist comes in, Kate Laswell. Kate Laswell recognizes that Shadow Company represents something big. She understands that not every operation can be clean, not every mission can be handled through the official channels, and some work requires covert action, deniable assets, and morally gray decisions to maintain that global stability that she's always after. So Shadow Company fits that role perfectly, better than even Task Force 141. The idea here is that Laswell approaches Graves with a deal, a way forward. Shadow Company can be reintegrated into a controlled capacity, working alongside the CIA rather than against them. In return, they get legitimacy restored, access to future contracts, financial backing, and a path away from the total collapse that Shepard put them in. From Graves' perspective, as the owner, as the commander of the Shadow Company, this is like a second chance. This is like a way for him to make more money and to keep doing what he loves to do. Shadow Company was never really built to be the villains. They follow orders, right? Not what is right or wrong. They just do what they're paid to do. They go where they are directed. They go where they're pointed. And under the right leadership and oversight with Kate Laswell, they can be pointed towards something more controlled and something that's a little bit more positive, if you will. So Commander Graves accepts the arrangement and begins working alongside Kate Laswell and the CIA in a more structured role. I think that is the state of the Shadow Company moving into the events of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Another thing that we need to take a look at is Captain Price and his mental state between 2023 and 2026. Now, we need to look at what's happening with Captain Price over the last 3 years. It is my belief that after the events of MW3, Price has been actively hunting down Makarov and chasing every possible lead he can to bring him down for good. Obviously, it's personal. And obviously, fucking Price is full of guilt. Price is carrying the weight of everything that happened, especially Soap's death. He feels responsible for the people that he couldn't save and the situations he couldn't prevent because of Makarov's actions. He also has to live with the consequences of earlier decisions. Let's take a look back at Modern Warfare 2 when they go back to the year 2019. Price chose to follow protocol and keep things controlled, even when Soap wanted to kill Makarov. Price didn't let him. And Makarov was sent to the Gulag instead of getting taken care of. And that decision caused so much backlash. Makarov would continue to operate in the shadows from the Gulag. He would orchestrate attacks, manipulating events from MW19 all the way to MW3, and even giving ballistic missiles to Hassan Ziani in MW2. So by the time that MW3 finally arrived, Price was forced to confront everything that happened because he didn't put Makarov down back in 2019. And then Soap's death, I think, became the breaking point because he knew that he stopped Soap when he could have let Soap take care of it. And I don't know, maybe Price felt that he was restrained by the rules or held back by the rules. So he decided that he needed to step out of that. He needed to take matters into his own hands and fully commit to just finding Makarov and killing him by any means necessary. So Captain Price was mentally destroyed, to be honest, and his mental state deteriorated over the past 3 years. With all that out of the way, we get to take a look at the story of Modern Warfare 4. By 2026, Vladimir Makarov is planning his next attack. This time, he's in New York City, and he has finally gotten his hands on a weapon of mass destruction. Now, I think that he's working alongside North Korea and its new supreme leader to prepare a massive attack using that weapon. Maybe the plan is for Makarov to transport it directly to North Korea himself, promising them that once the weapon arrives, they can begin everything, the real war, so to speak. But somehow Captain Price hears about it, and for the first time since the events of Modern Warfare 3, Price finally knows where Makarov is. He discovers that Makarov is hiding in New York, and I think that immediately sets the entire story into motion. Price enters the city alone, and judging by the way he looks in the footage, he seems a little bit bruised, hurt, kind of injured. It feels like there's some kind of chase or operation that happens before he reaches that club. Now, eventually, he arrives at the nightclub. Now, this same nightclub has been teased in promotional material for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or 3. I can't really remember which one, but Makarov was kind of sitting in this bar having fun. And I remember that location instantly when I saw the nightclub, and I figured that's probably the same nightclub used in the promotional material. And obviously, this is where everything kind of comes to a head for Price and Makarov. Price enters the nightclub and beats the shit out of everybody, carving a path to Makarov. And by the time he finally reaches him, there's nowhere left to run for Makarov, and it's time for him to face his consequences. Now, the two of them probably fight, get into a very brutal fist fight, and Price eventually comes out on top. He takes Makarov to a back alley and beats him to a bloody pulp, to a bloody death. And it looks so brutal and nasty, and every punch just has blood squirting up. I mean, it is savage, right? Now, what's crazy about all of this is that according to a lot of reports, and one coming from Charlie Intel, is that this supposedly happens as the second mission of Modern Warfare 4, meaning that Makarov dies very early. If that's true, and I do believe that is true, then his death obviously isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning, is the catalyst of what happens and why maybe North Korea invades so quickly. Now, I think that Price discovers something after he kills him or while killing him. I think he finds that weapon of mass destruction. I think he uncovers what Makarov was planning to do and realizes that the attack is already in motion. And obviously, that's a huge problem. Price can't go to Task Force 141. He can't go to the Special Air Service. And I don't really know if he can go to the CIA. He's disavowed and completely alone, and he's cut from any official support. Obviously, if he doesn't do anything or he doesn't act immediately, whatever Makarov started, wherever this weapon is going to have massive repercussions. And now somehow, Price has to stop it on his own. What do we see after Captain Price kills Vladimir Makarov? He gets detained by someone. Now, I thought it was maybe the police, and I thought maybe it was the CIA. I thought Kate Laswell was going to bring him in. But it obviously does beg a question if you look deeper. If it's not Laswell, then who is it? And the more I thought about it, it could be the Las Almas cartel. Now, more specifically, Valeria Garza, El Sin Nombre. Maybe they caught wind of what Makarov was planning, and realized just how valuable this weapon of mass destruction actually was. Not because they want to destroy the world, but because possessing something that powerful could add a lot of leverage to them and to Las Almas cartel. Now, this is something that I could see Valeria doing, and it's obviously not out of the realm of possibility that the cartel is operating in New York and in other parts of the world. So maybe they were already tracking Makarov and they wanted to get to him first to try to find that weapon, but obviously Price beat him to it. And by the time that the Las Almas cartel catches up to Makarov, Price has already beaten the shit out of him and basically, or actually killed him. So this leads to Price being held by Las Almas cartel. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of history there, or a lot of history between Valeria Garza and Captain Price.
It's the way of the world.
You put a target on your back.
No, I put a target in Chicago. Now fucking leave Las Almas and go find the pendejos pa' fuera.
From now, she's yours. But we'll be back.
I look forward to it.
Let's go. A la chingada.
So I think what happens here is that Price gets taken to Valeria. And that's where I think the story really starts to pick up and it maybe takes a interesting turn. Because I think instead of killing him, Valeria and Price begin to talk. And I think Price realizes that, as crazy as it might sound, Valeria might actually be a safer option over North Korea. So maybe Price tells her something like, I'd rather you have the weapon than let North Korea get it. You're crazy as fuck, but you understand power. You understand that there's consequences to this, and I don't think you would want to blow the world up. Now, if North Korea gets their hands on this thing, color me fucked. Like, that's probably what he's thinking. So I feel like this is kind of the decision and the moral dilemma that Modern Warfare might force Price into, and I think it's something that he's very good at dealing with. So he's not necessarily choosing the good option or the bad option. He's just looking for the one that's least crazy, right? And that's sometimes the only choice you can make. So I think this becomes like a central part of the story moving forward. Obviously, there's an uneasy alliance between Captain Price and Valeria Garza. That is a word used in the promotional news for Modern Warfare 4, an uneasy alliance. So Price doesn't trust Valeria. Price isn't teaming up with Valeria and having so much fun with her, and Valeria probably doesn't trust him either, but they know they can use each other right now to maybe chase after the same goal. They understand that if this weapon reaches North Korea, then it could have major repercussions for everybody, including them. I think eventually Price informs Kate Laswell about all of this, about him working with Las Almas, about him killing Makarov, about him finding out this big weapon of mass destruction and Makarov's plan, and the possibility that North Korea is about to move on something big. And I think that once Laswell gets this information and she realizes how serious everything is, she's forced to act fast. So she pulls together whatever team she can. At this point, Task Force 141 is potentially hanging on by a thread. Obviously, we know, so gone, Price disavowed, the team doesn't even exist. So that means that their only real field asset that they can use from the original team is maybe Ghost, maybe Gas, but maybe just Ghost. So Laswell brings in Commander Philip Graves and the Shadow Company to do this operation kind of off the books. So she sends Ghost alongside Graves and Shadow Company to contain this weapon and to stop Las Almas cartel and Price from getting it. I think all of this leads to Paris, because maybe in Paris is where that weapon of mass destruction is and where it's being moved. So now you have a lot of things happening. You have Ghost, Las Almas cartel, Price, Valeria Garza, and Graves pushing towards the same exact target. And so 4 days after the death of Makarov, North Korea learns of what happens, and their new supreme leader realizes that Makarov, and by extension the Kani Group, can no longer deliver the weapon that they promised. And so that causes North Korea to accelerate their entire plan and launch a full-scale invasion of South Korea, which causes the Korean peninsula to erupt into war. Now, I think that the invasion itself becomes, obviously, the main conflict of Modern Warfare 4. Because while Price, Ghost, Shadow Company, Valeria Garza, and everyone else is trying to secure the weapon in Paris, the larger global war is already beginning somewhere else. Obviously, I would think that the objective for North Korea Korea is to overtake South Korea, stabilize the region under their military control, and then locate the weapon themselves before the West can secure it. And this is where the story, I think, shifts perspectives. During the invasion, we're introduced to Private Park, a soldier who has never actually experienced real war before this moment. He has no major combat experience, no live fire experience, no experience with an invasion of this scale. Of course he doesn't. So Private Park and everyone around him are forced into a desperate fight to survive and push the invasion back. And this is where it goes full scale war. I think the invasion is probably so big and overwhelming. I mean, the casualties are already massive from the trailers that we've seen. South Korean forces are getting pushed back hard. Now, at the same time, there's an American element to it because there were American forces stationed in South Korea and they get dragged into the conflict. Now, we also get to see the return of Corporal Dunn. I don't know if we are going to be playing as the Marine Raiders or as Rangers, but one of the two are going to come into play in South Korea, absolutely. Because according to the material, there's an American military embedded within the South Korean army before the invasion began. That's what we know from the official website of Modern Warfare. And so once North Korea attacks, we get thrown into one of the biggest and largest conflicts in the entire Modern Warfare history, and definitely in the rebooted history. And now this is kind of what's going on in Modern Warfare 4. This is the story that we know. To be honest, I'm liking a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing, and I'm very, very, very happy that Commander Philip Graves is coming back. This has potential to be the best story of the rebooted trilogy, because in Paris, I think we finally get conflicts resolved that have been building ever since Modern Warfare 2. Shadow Company versus the Las Almas Cartel, Commander Graves versus Valeria Garza. That shit just feels kind of inevitable, like it's absolutely going to happen. And obviously throughout the trailers and, you know, the reveal that we've seen of Modern Warfare 4 so far, we keep seeing the Shadow Company. They're hunting down the rogue targets. We see them hunting down Price, chasing Price, you know, hunting down El Sin Nombre and Las Almas. Shadow Company is there all throughout the trailer. There's no mistaking it. So definitely Kate Laswell gave Shadow Company and Graves direct orders. Stop Price, stop the cartel, secure that weapon, and bring it the fuck back. So if you're Commander Graves, this is perfect. You're having a shit ton of fun and you're doing some real heavy lifting. You know, I could see Graves kind of being like, hell yeah, I'm the hero now. I'm the one doing the good shit. I mean, Graves is gonna shine. You know, he's probably thinking like, I get to fucking kill Valeria Garza. I get to fuck this cartel up. I get to secure the goddamn weapons and send them back to the US. And I mean, I don't know, man. I think Graves would fucking love it, and I'd love it. You know, I know he's gonna be going crazy over it. So yeah, I think this creates one of the maybe stronger side conflicts that we've seen in recent years, and something that's thoroughly exciting. I mean, every aspect of the game I'm excited for. Obviously, the biggest thing and the stuff that we haven't covered yet for the story of the game is the conflict between Ghost and Captain Price. And this is really interesting to me because it's something that I talked about being a possibility years ago, all the way back in 2024, when I said that Ghost was eventually going to lose trust in Captain Price and that it would lead to some kind of confrontation between the two. That's crazy that I call it that, but I'll also admit that over time, my attachment to other characters have really grown, like Commander Graves, like Ghost, like Soap, Alex Keller, and attachment or love for Price has kind of stagnated, even though I think he's probably the best. I just feel like we've seen so much of Price that it kind of just stayed the same. So I don't know, I was in a weird spot, but after I saw everything that happened in the story and the trailer, I need Price to beat the shit out of everybody and to just go full savage. I am on your side, Price. Let's fuck everybody standing in your way. And if Price and Ghost actually fight, I ain't gonna fucking lie, I need Price to whoop his ass. But here's the thing. Even though the trailer looks like they're about to fight, I don't actually think that they do. I think this scene takes place in Paris during the chaos surrounding the capture of the weapon, of course. Now, my guess is that Price is trying to escape in a helicopter while Graves and Valeria's forces are tearing the city apart. Then something happens. Maybe the helicopter gets hit or it explodes, causing Price to crash onto a rooftop because it clearly seems like he just fell and he's kind of struggling to get back up. Then Ghost kind of appears. I don't know if he fell as well or he was on the rooftop already. I'm not sure. But Ghost is kind of standing up. And this is what he says.
You broke a lot of rules, Price. No more rules.
If you listen carefully, the audio feels a little bit off when Price responds. it doesn't actually sound like it's part of the same conversation. The dialogue feels like it was maybe edited. It doesn't feel like Price says that when he pulls out the knife. And it just kind of makes me think that maybe it's a misdirect or something is going on. I don't know. I think maybe Ghost is wanting to stop Price and talk to him. Maybe Ghost is realizing how far Price has fallen, how, how crazy he's gotten. And maybe it's the first time he's talking to him in years. Because obviously at this point, from what Ghost maybe does know, Price has gone rogue. He killed Makarov illegally. He allied himself with a cartel, and he is operating completely outside of the rules that he was once a part of. So when Price says there are no more rules, I think that's like the tone of Modern Warfare 4. That is the message, and I think they needed to get that out. They wanted to end the trailer with that, to say there are no more rules. That's the big tagline for the entire Modern Warfare 4. And so with that being said, that is the story explained. That is the full story that we know of Modern Warfare 4. Of course, this just involves me thinking about it and kind of putting it all together. And I think this is what's going on at the core of Modern Warfare. So I'm really excited for it. This is the story as I understand it currently. There's obviously a lot more to be revealed. And I think this just is insane. I think Modern Warfare 3 was such a disappointment that Modern Warfare feels like it has potential to completely bring the series back with a campaign that actually feels like a campaign again. Now that we've gone through the story setup, the story recap, the overall explanation of what we know and what we think is happening, let's move into something a little bit more fun, the theories, because there are a few details here that really get interesting once you start looking closer at them. So the first one that we're going to start off with, obviously, is Captain Price and Ghost. So going back to the theory here is I don't really think they actually fight. I think the trailer, again, is a misdirect. I think it's trying to make us believe something that's happening, but it really isn't happening. Now, one of the biggest examples that I can remember is in MW3. Remember when it looked like Price died or he was going to die? We saw him collapse and pass out, and a ton of people, myself included, thought he was dead, but he wasn't. He literally just passed out, woke up a few seconds later, and everything was fine. So I think in MW4, something similar is happening. I think Activision, Infinity Ward, they want us to believe that Captain Price and Ghost are about to beat the shit out of each other. But in reality, I think the situation plays out a bit different. I think that what actually happens is that after the helicopter crash, potentially in Paris, Price gets up, he's a little bit disoriented, he's a little bit kind of, I don't know, like on edge. And then he sees Ghost, and he sees his ass get up, and he's like, oh shit, all right, Ghost, you want to get your ass whooped? All right, boy, let me teach you how it is around here. I'm the original captain. So, I don't know, man. He obviously you hear Ghost say, you've broken a lot of rules, Price. That moment, man, when Price hears that, I think his immediate instinct is probably like, okay, Ghost is here to fight. So he pulls out a knife. But I genuinely don't think that Price said this.
No more rules.
Again, audio just doesn't fucking add up to me. Now, what I think that Price actually said, or maybe the conversation between Ghost and Price goes like this. Maybe Ghost tells him, hey, calm down. I'm not here to kill you. I've been looking for you. What the fuck is going on? Let's talk. And maybe Price tells him, look, this shit with the weapon happened. Makarov, Valeria, North Korea, all of it. This is all crazy. This is what's going on. I'm literally just trying to stop it, but I don't have any backing. Now, I think that Price tells Ghost that he worked with Valeria because he had no other option, right? And maybe he tells him, like, we can't let North Korea get this. Nobody can have this. We need to destroy it or get it back to Laswell. I really don't care about me, but we just got to stop this now. And I think from this point forward, Ghost and Price work together again. Maybe for the last time. This isn't Price getting reinstated in Task Force 141 or cleared of everything he's done. But they're getting back together again for just maybe one final mission. The two of them reunite to retrieve the weapon to stop the world from completely falling apart. Maybe Gas joins. And, that sounds pretty fucking cool. Because this whole story kind of feels like the end of Price's journey. It feels like Modern Warfare 4 could be the final chapter for this version of the character. And I honestly think it would make sense. Because Price has crossed lines that you really can't come back from anymore. You just can't. Killing General Shepard was already massive. But after that, Price went completely off the books. He hunted down Makarov on his own and brutally killed him without authorization while being disavowed by the very governments and organizations that he once worked for. This wasn't a sanctioned operation, it was murder. And there's no really way around it. There's nothing that you could say that would change that. Price committed a fucking crime, multiple crimes. And even if he saves the world by recovering the weapon of mass destruction, I don't think that suddenly wipes everything clean. And I guess it shouldn't, because think about it. Captain Price is almost definitely going to be fighting Shadow Company during Paris events. He's probably going to shoot at these CIA-backed operatives in Paris. He's going to attack people that are technically under official orders while he himself is rogue. From a legal standpoint, Price is completely and utterly fucked. There's definitely not going to be a happy ending for him. And I think that makes everything a lot more interesting. So if there isn't going to be any happy ending for him, we need to look at this other theory about Price and his death. Now, the only way that I see the story ending is with Price dying. Because at this point, what's left for him? Vladimir Makarov was the one thing that Price had been chasing this entire time. He was the obsession, the mission, the reason Price kept going even after everything that happened at the end of MW3. But now Makarov is dead. His buddy Soap is dead. Task Force 141, what he created, is fucking dead. So what's left for Price, right? So this story feels like the last hurrah, one last mission. And because of everything he's done over the last few years, Price has become maybe what he used to chase, right? He's an outlaw. Again, those are the words used by the promotional material. An outlaw operating outside of the law he once served. Again, that is what they said. So I think Modern Warfare 4 ends with Price making maybe a final sacrifice. Maybe he stays behind so Ghost can escape. Maybe he sacrifices himself, stopping the weapon of mass destruction from going off. Maybe he dies preventing North Korea or Valeria getting it. I mean, whatever happens, I think it's going to be a redeeming act. Like the Red Dead Redemption Captain Price edition. You know what I mean? Like he's going to do something here that redeems all of the fucking heinous shit he's been doing over the past 3 years. Because maybe it gives him peace, because he can finally die with some of that old dignity that he used to have. Maybe he isn't the shell of the man he became, but there's a little bit of him left before everything that happened, right? And I think that he will sacrifice himself for that. And I think that's a much better ending to him by killing him off after he did all this, instead of having him get captured and sent to prison for the rest of his life. You know what I'm saying? That would be a very sad ending instead of going out with a bang like I think Captain Price would like. I think this would be a tragically beautiful ending for a legendary character. If I'm right, and this is the end for Captain Price, I think Barry Sloan deserves a massive amount of credit, because personally, this is my favorite version of Captain Price and one of my favorite interpretations of any Call of Duty character ever. Now, let's take a look at another theory here with Gas. This is an important question, and this is an important conversation that needs to happen. Where the fuck is Gas? What happened to him? Because one of the biggest things missing from everything that we've seen so far in Modern Warfare 4 is Gas himself. He's nowhere in the trailer, nowhere in the promotional material, nothing. And considering how important he was throughout the rebooted trilogy, the absence feels kind of intentional. I think one possibility is that Gas died sometime during the 3-year gap between MW3 and MW4. Maybe there was another failed operation. Maybe Makarov struck again. Maybe that's what caused Price to go fully batshit crazy and, on the run, because Gas ended up getting killed. Honestly, that would hurt a lot, because I think that Gas has been very underused since Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. He was one of the strongest additions to the rebooted Modern Warfare series. Out of all the redesigned characters, I think Gas felt like the one that was most natural and, maybe most believable alongside Captain Price. And he had a really cool, grounded personality that kind of balanced everyone around him. Obviously, he had massive potential, and I think he is loved by the community, and so killing him off screen would, I think, piss everybody off. And not having Gas involved in the hunt for Price is a really bad choice. I think if Price really has gone rogue and Task Force 141 is trying to track him down, then honestly, Gas feels like the person who should be the center of that conflict, not Ghost. But we obviously know that Ghost is more famous and he has a bigger fan base, so obviously you go for the one that makes you the most money. I think Gas has always kind of questioned Price the most throughout the Modern Warfare games in this rebooted trilogy. He obviously respected Price, but there was a lot of pushback against some of Price's methods and decision makings. Maybe sometimes that other people didn't really push back on, right? Like Soap and Ghost kind of said, all right, fuck it, let's do it. And Gas would be like, hold on, wait a second. So that's why I think it would have been such a strong character arc to have Gas become the one hunting Price down. Like, imagine if that helicopter happens, but it's actually Gas who says, hey, you've broken a lot of rules, Cap. You know what I mean? Like, that shit could have been really fucking cool. Because, one could argue that Ghost doesn't even believe in the rules himself. Like, he's like, fuck the rules. Because, everything that happened to him in his origin story, he broke a lot of rules himself, right? So, yeah, that should be questioned. And Gas, I think he still believes in the rules fully. I think he believes in the structure. I think he believes in doing things the right way. So having him forced to confront the man who taught him a lot throughout Modern Warfare 2019 all the way to, to Modern Warfare 3 would be really fucking cool and powerful. So yeah, I think the absence of Gas stands out tremendously. Gas needs to be in the game. I think the other possibility is that Gas is in the game and he's still active alongside Ghost and what remains of Task Force 141. We just haven't seen him yet. And honestly, that could be just because the trailer didn't have enough time to focus on everybody. They didn't want to show him. I mean, we didn't see Commander Graves. So maybe Activision intentionally held back to avoid revealing too much about his role in the story. I think if Gas is alive, I think he's going to have a major role in whatever happens between Price, Ghost, Shadow Company, and obviously the weapon itself. Gas deserves far more focus than what he's gotten in the rebooted trilogy, and I hope that Modern Warfare 4 does him right. Another really interesting theory, and one of my favorites here, is Graves and Valeria. Honestly, this side conflict, if you will, is maybe the one that I'm the most excited about because Philip Graves is my guy, right? He is my fucking guy, and he and Valeria Garza have a lot of bad blood between them. If you go back and look at their interactions in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, you can immediately feel the hatred between them. Valeria absolutely despises Graves. And honestly, I think she wants revenge. Not just because of what happened to her men, but because of the way Graves talked to her, disrespected her, touched her, treated her throughout the events of Modern Warfare 2. At the end of the day, Valeria is the ruthless, merciless leader of Las Almas Cartel. She's ruthless, manipulative, violent, completely willing to kill people to get what she wants. She has no regard for human life. And I think part of her absolutely wants to humiliate Graves and make him suffer the same way she felt humiliated when he had his hands on her back in Modern Warfare 2. On the other side, Graves clearly doesn't trust her either, clearly doesn't like her. He dislikes everything she represents, and he had zero hesitation killing cartel members during the events of Modern Warfare 2. And now obviously Valeria acting morally outraged about her men dying would be pretty fucking hypocritical, considering who she is and what she does and what her cartel does. But that doesn't really matter to her. She doesn't give a fuck. To her, it's just fucking personal. And I think that is going to come to a head and explode in MW4. And honestly, I think this is where the GOAT Graves really gets a chance to shine. I really fucking do, because I fully expect there to be a major side conflict between Shadow Company and Las Almas Cartel throughout the Paris section of the story. We keep seeing Shadow Company chasing Price. We keep seeing cartel presence in the trailer and Shadow Company presence in the trailer. We keep seeing these factions cross paths. So Paris feels like the perfect place for all of these unresolved tensions for Modern Warfare 2 to finally boil over. Now, I need to say this right now. Please, for the love of freaking God, Infinity War, do not kill Commander Graves. And especially, do not have Valeria Garza kill my man Graves. Do not fucking do it, man. This is one of my biggest worries going into this side story, because I genuinely think that it would be such a waste of the character. If anybody deserves any type of revenge on Graves, it would have to be Alejandro Vargas. Definitely more than Valeria. But personally, I don't think that Graves should die at all. Not right now, at least. I think there's way too much potential left with him as a character. You can absolutely build like an entire spin-off around Shadow Company, private military companies, or anything else post MW4. And Graves could be the center of it, or one of the centers of it. There's so much more room left to explore with that side of the universe, and I think Warren Cole would be especially intrigued to come back and take more of a central role. And after the whole I wasn't in that tank situation, I think killing him off would just be unnecessary. Nobody wants to see that, right? I think in MW3, the screen time that Graves got was very, very small, and the writing around him didn't really feel like Graves. So I hope that because Modern Warfare 4 feels so different, the tone feels darker, more grounded, more intense, more revenge-filled. I hope that that translates to Graves. I think that type of tone with Commander Graves and Warren Cole acting could give us the best version of Graves we've seen. If the writing is strong, and from everything we've seen so far, it looks like it is, Graves could end up becoming one of the standout characters of the entire campaign again. So I'm really excited to see the GOAT back. Now, one of the bigger theories and one of the more important ones here is the North Korea angle. Obviously, one of the biggest events in Modern Warfare 4 is the full-scale invasion of South Korea by North Korea. And alongside that invasion, we're introduced to this brand new Supreme Leader character. Now, obviously, in real life, the leader of North Korea or the Supreme Leader is Kim Jong-un, but he most likely won't appear directly in the game itself. So something clearly happens in the world of Modern Warfare 4 that leads to this new leader taking power. And the guy looks a bit dangerous. He looks young, but he looks cold behind those eyes. He looks ruthless and he looks ready for fucking war. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just go to war. So I think that's why initially maybe Vladimir Makarov wanted to work with him in the first place. I think Makarov needed someone that was willing to make a statement, and this new Supreme Leader looks like he wanted to make a statement. So Makarov was looking for someone to create more chaos with, and he found it in the Supreme Leader of North Korea. So something that I found interesting is that this new Supreme Leader seems to have his own personal military unit, and I'm not talking about the North Korean army, but I'm talking like maybe he has a few guys or group that operate under his command like 100% fully, and they just work for him. Maybe like a private guard or a task force that he uses. And he uses them to handle anything mega sensitive. We get a glimpse of them in the trailer and they look fucking brutal. Here they are.
재반자를 찾아내라. 이 마을을 불태워서라도.
Now, in the scene, we appear to see this team moving through this village, and I would assume somewhere in North Korea, hunting a defector down. Now, this defector may have leaked some information about the weapon of mass destruction. Maybe he passed some of this intel to the CIA. Maybe he gave it to Kate Laswell. Maybe they even gave it directly to Captain Price, and that's how he found about Makarov, right? I don't know exactly what happened to this defector, but if this defector and his leak is the reason that the whole race for this weapon started in the first place, this is really fucking big, because that information led to Price, Shadow Company, the cartel, North Korea, everybody kind of making moves. So I think that this elite North Korean unit is going to become one of the main antagonist forces throughout the entire campaign. They're probably the people we'll be fighting constantly during the Korean missions, especially through the perspective of Private Park and the South Korean military, and maybe if we play as the Marines or the Rangers. So I think the Korean Peninsula storyline gives me huge flashbacks and a classic Modern Warfare vibe. It reminds me a lot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the original, where the campaign kept shifting between large-scale wars between Task Force 141 and its covert operations. We had Price and the rest of the team doing stuff on one side of the world, and then we had the Americans fighting, trying to defend Washington. So it just seems and feels like a massive callback to that invasion. So to recap it quickly, you have Price, Ghost, Shadow Company, Valeria, and everyone else fighting and racing over the weapon in Paris. And then on the other side, you have the full-scale war erupting across the Korean Peninsula with the South Korean forces and the American forces all in a fight for survival. Obviously, this makes the scale feel bigger than ever before. It's not just small operations kind of moving through the dark. This is loud, this is big, this is global, and this is why I think they brought in so many new characters for this Korean storyline, and we're getting to see some big actors coming in, and I have a feeling that we haven't even seen half of it. Modern Warfare came out and stated that this is their biggest cast yet, so there is a lot of cool things coming. Now, for the final stuff that we're going to look at here on this big Modern Warfare video is the official news. Now, Makarov dies early. That is official reporting. That is 100% going to happen. Because we've gone through the theories and the story recaps and everything else, I want to talk about this next. According to Charlie Intel, Infinity War apparently revealed to creators during a private event or a get-together that Vladimir Makarov is killed by Captain Price in the second mission of Modern Warfare 4. Now, this was a massive reveal. Apparently, the reason they chose to reveal this early is because they didn't want fans assuming that Makarov was going to be the main villain for the entire game again, or thinking that he was going to still be the central force behind everything happening in the story. Instead, it seems like Infinity War wants people to understand that Modern Warfare 4 is going in a very different direction. Now, a lot of people were pissed the fuck off about this. Some people felt like this was way too big of a spoiler. Others thought that Infinity War was trying to fix or move away from what Sledgehammer Games did with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. And I mean, I could see both arguments. I could see both sides, but if you wanted, you absolutely could have structured the story where Makarov stays in the background the entire time. You could have made it seem like North Korea was the true threat, like they were the ones orchestrating everything, only to reveal that Makarov was the one manipulating the entire conflict from behind the scenes. That absolutely would have worked. But at the same time, I also understand why Infinity Ward is taking this route. Because if the entire theme of MW4 is Dark Price, which is apparently, again, how Infinity Ward is referring to this version of Price, then Makarov dying early makes sense. Because the story isn't about chasing Makarov and what he did in MW3. It's about what happens to Price after he finally gets what he was after. And it's funny because there was a subscriber who made a comment about how it's been 3 years since the death of Soap that it's not even going to feel impactful anymore for us to want to hunt down Makarov. So that gets taken care of because you brutally kill Makarov extremely early in the game. I will say that when I heard about the news of Makarov's dying in the second mission, my stomach sank. It was weird. It was fucking weird. Why are you aligning yourself with the fucking terrorists? What's going on? It was weird, all right? I don't know why. I don't know why it sank or why it dropped, but Makarov has always been the villain of Modern Warfare, the big bad, the monster behind everything. So hearing that he gets beaten to death by Price at the beginning of the game, I don't know, man, it was really shocking. It felt like maybe they were throwing away the franchise's most iconic villain or something. I don't know. But I guess the more I thought about it and the more I actually really sat with the idea, I kind of liked it. Because realistically, Makarov has been active for years by this point. He's been causing chaos, launching attacks, destroying lives. He's been operating unchecked while Price has been hunting him down for 3 years and doing shit that we haven't even seen. So we just haven't played through it the entire time. So instead of spending another entire game building up to the moment of Price finally catching him, MW4 basically skips all the fluff and jumps directly to the payoff. Price finally finds him, Price finally snaps, and Price finally kills him. And is the culmination of what he's been doing for the past 3 years. So I think it's a very interesting take, maybe some would even say a bold take, but I'm very happy to see it. And I'm happy that Infinity Ward grew some balls. So it's really cool, right? Like, because then you start saying, okay, what happens after Makarov dies? What was he actually planning? What did Price unleash by killing him? What kind of man has Price become after dedicating years of his life to revenge and, breaking the fucking rules and doing something illegal? Yeah, the story becomes really interesting at the end of the day. And then I started thinking about how he killed my boy Soap. I love Soap. And when that happened, I remember my immediate reaction was like, motherfucker, I'm gonna kill you. And I wanted to kill him. I was filled with rage. And obviously it mellowed over the past 3 years because we haven't really been seeing it. But now that I rewatched the death of Soap, I really hope that Price made him suffer. I really cannot wait to play that mission and beat the dog shit out of Makarov for my boy Soap. All right, now official news number 2 is the return of classic linear campaigns. Now this is a huge piece of news. This is the main news I think that we should concentrate on. This also came from Charlie Intel, and it is reported that Modern Warfare 4 is structured in 3 acts. The North Korean Peninsula serving as the main setting and core focus of the campaign. And according to reports, the story begins with North Korea launching a full-scale invasion of South Korea, throwing the entire world into chaos and causing conflicts to spread across multiple locations, including Mumbai, New York City, Paris, and Russia. The game is also reportedly bringing back characters like Captain Price, Valeria Garza, Philip Graves, along Shadow Company, and Ghost, while introducing entirely new characters connected to both the North and South Korean military storylines. And, like I mentioned, the biggest news is the fact that Infinity Ward is returning to a classic linear Call of Duty campaign structure. We have been saying it for years here. We have been talking about it, that Call of Duty needed to go back to what made them Call of Duty. The Call of Duty campaigns should have never moved away from that formula in the first place. The last truly strong linear Modern Warfare campaign we got was Modern Warfare 2. And even then, parts of it were already experimenting with the open combat structure. And then Modern Warfare 3 fully leaned into it and fucked everything up. And honestly, I think that decision hurt the campaigns badly moving forward. For years now, the campaign-focused players have been stuck watching the mode get treated like an afterthought. And the attention has gone to Warzone and multiplayer. And I think the rise of Call of Duty Warzone made the campaign designs lazy. We've said this shit. Instead of carefully crafting these good ass missions with pacing, with set pieces, with tension, with cinematic storytelling. We started using these giant open combat missions that felt like stripped down Warzone, and then threw some cinematics over it. Now, the problem here was that it removed what made Call of Duty campaigns great in the first place. The Call of Duty campaigns were memorable because they had focus, they had great levels, they had great set pieces, they moved the story forward, and you had fun playing them and going back and replaying them and doing things differently. That's what I've always said. When people think back on great Call of Duty games, most of the time they remember the campaigns first. When I think about Call of Duty Ghost, I think about the story and Rourke and Logan. When I think about Call of Duty Black Ops 2, I think about David Mason and the stuff that he did with Menendez. All the choices about the story. When I think about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I think about Price Return, Gas, The Embassy, Clean House, all these incredible fucking campaign moments that felt grounded and intense. I always think about the story, not some random ass multiplayer map. That's why I believe that the campaign is the heart of Call of Duty. It is the foundation that everything is always built on. And when you stop treating the campaign with care, when you rush it, when you cheapen it, when you give us fucking open combat missions, the entire franchise loses its identity. They don't know what the fuck to do. That's why the return of linear missions is such a big deal. That's what Call of Duty should always strive for. Not some big ass maps where you can just do shit for like 30 minutes, right? The campaign should feel focused and intense. And if Infinity Ward truly commits to that classic structure again, Modern Warfare 4 has the potential to deliver the best Call of Duty campaign that we've had in years. 100%. The campaign is always what we remember forever. All right, you guys, so it's telling me that I've been recording for over an hour, yapping my ass off for no fucking reason. So I am going to be leaving you guys here. This is basically everything that I have regarding Modern Warfare 4. Now, one final thing I absolutely need to talk about before ending the video is the soundtrack. The music for this new Modern Warfare game sounds phenomenal. The explosive, heavy, almost revenge-driven score they used in the trailer is so sick. The second I heard it, it instantly reminded me of Wrath of Men, directed by Guy Ritchie, starring Jason Statham. Now, if you've seen that movie, then you already know exactly what kind of atmosphere it has. It's cold, it's aggressive, it's tense, it's ruthless, it's revenge-filled. And that is exactly what this soundtrack in Modern Warfare 4 has. It matches the direction the story seems to be taking, with Captain Price being filled with revenge. So I really just wanted to comment that about the soundtrack. And now also something else that, really catches my eye and something that I'm really excited to see is, Ghost and Price going at each other, because I think that would raise questions about Ghost as a character. Like, why would Ghost try to stop Price? Does he think that Price went too far? Does he disagree with what he did? Does he think that Price used Soap's death as an excuse to become something darker? Maybe Ghost looks at everything Price has done over the last 3 years and thinks, you didn't do this for Soap, you did it for yourself. And that would be fucking wild. But honestly, I don't fucking know. Maybe Ghost is the one who ends up killing Price in the end. At this point, anything feels possible, and that's why Modern Warfare 4 seems so exciting. The hype around MW4 has started. It's absolutely insane right now, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like the campaign has massive ambitions again. And to all the fans of Bram Wolf and what we do here on the channel, I just want to say that one of the reasons that this video ended up being much longer than some of my usual updates is because I'm trying to shift the direction of the channel. I really want to focus on more deeper story analysis, lore discussions, long-form theories, character breakdowns, and maybe more cinematic style videos. Because honestly, that's the kind of content that I actually really enjoy, and I feel that you guys enjoy the most of. And with a story like Modern Warfare 4 shaping up to be this big and layered, there's a lot to talk about. So hopefully I've covered everything I needed to cover here regarding Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, and I will see you guys closer to launch.